Today, me and Tuck are going to share with you 10 crops you need to get planted in August. Let's go! We're in the second half of the growing season, and to find out what we still have time to plant, we need to find when our first expected frost date is. I'm in zone 7A, and my first expected frost date is October 15th. That means I have about 74 frost-free days left to grow. The first expected frost date, that's just a guess or an estimate, but it's a good way to kind of gauge how much time we still have left to plant. I have found that in my location, my first expected frost date, that's usually a little earlier. My actual frost usually comes a little after that. So I always plant in hopes that the frost comes later. Now that I know I have about 75 days till my first expected frost, I can start deciding what I want to get planted into the ground. In August, it's a great time to get some peas planted. In this section back here, I had some beautiful peas planted in the spring. Super productive. I had the sugar snap pea, one of my favorite all-time varieties. I also had some purple peas, the sugar magnolia. The color on them is incredible. Peas are a cold hardy crop, but one of the issues with planting them at this time of year is getting good germination. I have a few tricks for that. The first one is to soak your peas for 24 hours before planting. This will help speed up germination and also give you more consistent sprouting after you plant them out. So we'll just dump this water. Then I'll show you how I plant my peas. Get some peas just like this. Then I'll go over here. I already made sure that my soil is nice and moist. I'll take my peas, I'll place them 3 inches apart. So at 3 inches, 6 inches, 9 inches, 12 inches, 15 inches. Then I'll go back and I'll gently push them into the soil, making sure I don't damage the pea. Just like this. And then I'll brush over the top of it with some soil. I'll do that the whole way down. And then to help get better consistent germination also, another thing I'll do is I'll use a diced leaf mulch. I'll cover my pea seeds just like this to help the soil retain a good level of moisture. And the peas don't have any problem pushing through this kind of diced leaf mulch. Something like a lettuce has a problem pushing through mulch, but the peas have no issue with it. Another issue that I have had for many years when planting peas is the birds. Let me just get that up. So the birds will come and attack my young pea shoots. To prevent that, I built this pea box and I use this insect netting. I fold over top just like this. This makes it so the birds can't get to my young pea shoots and allows them to thrive. Also at this time of the year, it's August, I mean, it's hot. I'm out here earlier than usual and I'm still sweating. So if you have some really hot days when your peas are just starting to sprout, it's a good idea to take a shade cloth, a 40% shade cloth, throw it over top to give your peas a little bit of that filtered sunlight so they can manage through the hot days. Another crop you should get planted in August are actually Tuck's favorite. I'm talking about carrots. Let's grab a carrot here for him, give him a snack. We've got some carrots growing, but we're also going to plant another round of carrots. So when it comes to your carrots, they take about 70 to 80 days on average. So you want to get your carrots in the ground about 2 to 3 months before your first expected frost date. For me, that's right now. We know this guy's looking for a snack. So for me, it's the perfect time to get some carrots into the ground for a fall harvest. Let's see if this guy wants a snack on it. What do you think, boy? This guy's so cute. Now is the perfect time for me to get my carrots into the ground. Something like a cucumber, that will die from a light frost, but carrots, after a frost comes, they actually get sweeter. It brings up the sugar content in the carrots. Even though that brings up the sugar content and a frost can kind of be good for carrots, as the season goes on, the days get shorter, the sun drops lower, and the plants grow slower. So if you don't have that much time left, what I suggest you do is plant a variety of carrots that's quick cropping, like the Mokum. This one only takes about 48 days from seed to harvest. A tricky thing about carrots is getting good germination at this time of year, because carrots need about 1 week of consistent moisture on those seeds in order to germinate. The thing is, they don't like to be buried deep, and also they don't like a mulch on top. So to maintain that level of moisture for a week at this time of the year can be a little bit tough, but I have a trick for that known as the carrot board trick. What I do is I plant my carrots 16 per square foot. Then I take this board and cover the carrots with it. After about 5 to 7 days, I'll come out and check if the seeds started to sprout. Once I see those seeds sprouting, I'll remove the board. This allows me to get good, consistent germination with my carrots. The next crop you can plant in August are beets. They typically take about 55 to 70 days to go from seed to maturity. Like carrots, they're relatively cold hardy. Also, like carrots, they can be a bit tricky to get out of the ground at this time of the year because it's so dang hot. So what I suggest you do is soak your beet seeds for about 12 hours before planting. This will speed up the germination process and give you better germination rates overall. So I'll just dump these beets into here. This is how I do it. Then I can grab these beet seeds and plant them. I plant them about 9 beet seeds per square foot. I'll just make the holes like this. It's a quick, easy process. One of the really cool things about beets is they grow late into the season, but not only do you eat them for the roots, but also you could eat the leaves of the beet plants. You could eat up to 1/3 of the leaves on the beet plant and that won't damage it. So it's like a double crop. We can get the root crop, but we can also eat some of those fresh leaves. This is what makes beets such an incredible plant. And I plant them around the same time as my carrots. So this time of year is perfect. You'll notice I'll throw a few seeds per hole, then cover them up just like this. Because we soak them, the germination process has essentially already begun. August is a great time to get some kale planted. This is my favorite looking and one of my favorite tasting varieties, the dazzling blue kale. When it comes to kale though, there are some super cold hardy varieties. A variety like the red Russian kale and especially the white Russian kale are so cold hardy that I've had them grow throughout the whole year through the cold winter in my location with no covering. Kale is great to plant right now because it doesn't need to head up, you just eat the leaves. So if it comes to something like broccoli, cabbage, or cauliflower, you're cutting it a little bit close if you want to plant it right now. I usually plant my cabbage, my broccoli, my cauliflower in like mid-July so that I can transplant it into the garden in August. If you do want to press your luck though, I suggest you grow quick producing varieties like the early Jersey Wakefield cabbage. This one only takes about like 63 days from seed to harvest. So it's a good one to get planted if you forgot to plant some of your cabbages earlier in like July. So when it comes to starting things like my brassicas, it's still hot outside. I suggest you start them in trays like you see right here. But to help combat the strong sun and to keep your plants from getting leggy, what I like to do is when it's really hot out, I'll take a shade cloth when the sun is really intense and throw it over the top, this 40% shade cloth. What this does is it helps reduce some of the stress on those young brassicas because they don't like the heat that much. Then once they're more established, I'll transplant them into the garden. Another thing at this time of year is the white flies like to go after your young brassica plants. So what I'll do is when I have them out here, I'll just take this insect netting and put this over top. This helps keep the white flies out and some of the other nasty bugs for those brassicas. Then when I transplant them into the garden, if I can't cover them with something like an insect netting, to combat those white flies, I'll use either neem oil with some dish soap mixed into it, or you could go with this safer soap. This is an excellent one too. This helps keep the white flies at bay, so your plants can grow healthy, happy, and you can get some big harvests late in the season. Another crop you can get planted in August is lettuce. Lettuce is cold hardy. You could start planting your lettuce now and continue planting it up until September. This way you can get continual harvests of lettuce. So dang good, especially late in the season. Winter marble lettuce is a great variety. It's cold hardy, it grows late into the season, and I suggest you get this one planted. When it comes to lettuce, I like starting them in cells like you see here. The reason I do that is because lettuce can be a little tricky to get out of the ground at this time of the year. And unlike carrots, you can't use the carrot board trick for lettuce because lettuce actually needs a little light to germinate. So I suggest planting lettuce in cells and then transplanting that into the garden. Just make sure when you plant your lettuce into the garden, you pick a day where it's either like a little bit cloudy and a little misty rain. If you don't do that and you want to transplant out on a sunny day, just make sure you have a shade cloth. This will help your lettuce adjust to their new home and be able to just thrive once you get them in the ground. In August is when I start getting my spinach planted. Because spinach is so cold hardy, you could plant this later in August also. That's when I suggest you really plant it if you live in a zone like I do. Just like a lot of other crops, spinach can be a little tricky to get good germination at this time of year. When it comes to your spinach, when the soil is really warm, that can actually drop the germination rate of spinach down to like 50% or less. To compensate for this, if you want to direct sow your spinach, what I suggest you do is take your spinach, put it in the freezer for a couple days. Then take it out of the freezer, get a moist paper towel, wrap it in a moist paper towel, and then put that in the fridge. What we're essentially doing is we're mimicking what would happen in nature just naturally in the winter, and then in the spring they would get nice and wet, and that will greatly help increase your germination for your spinach. They're wrapped up in here somewhere. Then you could direct sow your spinach into the ground if you want to direct sow it. You can also just start in cells like I do. This allows me to just start in cells and transplant out. It's an easier thing to do overall, but if you want to start your spinach in the ground, then I suggest you go through this kind of cold treatment before you do that. Spinach is super cold hardy, like I mentioned. So what you could do is just throw a little cold frame over your spinach. That'll grow really late into the season, and you could even have some spinach that's still growing heading into spring next year. The next crops you can get planted in August are Asian greens. Some of these are so incredibly cold hardy and delicious, like the bok choy, the pak choy, and also the tatsoi are great choices. The thing is, I want to plant these till a little later in August because they could easily bolt, especially in this heat. They're best to plant in fall rather than in like spring, because if you plant some of these in spring, like the bok choy, that thing really goes to seed really quick once the heat comes. So fall is a great time to plant it so it can thrive heading late into that season. I've had some tatsoi that grew like through the whole entire winter too. They're delicious, they're nutritious, and they're a great choice to have in the garden. If you don't have some massive Swiss chard plants growing in your garden already, August is the great time to get some planted. These things will continue to kick out food late in the season. If you put a cover over it, this thing can continue to produce all year long. I planted this in the spring. It continued to grow through the spring, the summer. It'll grow through fall and into winter. They're incredible plants. When it comes to Swiss chard, if you don't have them growing already, I suggest you start some in trays like this. It's not a tricky plant to grow. It's relatively easy to get germinated. It's easy to grow, and it's a fantastic plant to have in the garden so you could be eating late into the winter. Another crop you can get planted in August are radishes. Radishes are an extremely fast growing, cold hardy crop. So now is a good time to start planting some radishes, and then you can continue planting them through like mid-September. Radishes, there are some varieties that grow so fast, like the pink lady slipper. This one only takes about 26 days from seed to harvest. Some varieties like the Masato Rose take about 60 days though from seed to harvest. So if you want to grow some of those longer season varieties like the Masato Rose, now would be a good time to start getting them in the ground. The next group of crops you can still plant in August are some cold hardy ones, some of them common, some of them a bit obscure. The first one is arugula. This is a common one. The ice bread arugula is a great one to grow late into the season, a nutty, delicious flavor. Another one that I love growing, I've been growing it for years, is Claytonia, also known as miner's lettuce. This one has a lemony kind of flavor. It grows prolifically. You just kind of plant it and let it do its thing. Another good one is Mache. This has a bit of a nutty flavor. It's not a very common plant, but it's super, super cold hardy, grows like all winter long. The next one that I really enjoy is red vein sorrel. This one has a beautiful color to it, a good look, and a decent flavor. And another one is Mizuna. Has more of like a peppery flavor. It's in the Brassica family. These are all great ones to get into the ground. They'll grow super late in the season for you. So the majority of these you're going to want to plant later in August, but they're great additions to that winter garden. Me and Tuck wanted to leave you with some bonus ones you could still plant if it's still early in August. We'll let this guy snack on a little bit of a cucumber. We still have some cucumbers left, and we have another round planted already. But if it's super early August for you, you could try to push your luck and get some more cucumbers planted as long as you do it like immediately. Another thing you want to make sure is that you plant varieties of cucumbers now that are quick cropping. For instance, the Socrates cucumber, this one only takes about 52 days from seed to harvest. You don't want to plant something like the painted serpent. This takes about 76 days from seed to harvest. It is important to note though, as I mentioned earlier, as we get later into the season, the sun drops lower, the days get shorter, and the plants grow slower. So you really want to make sure you have about 70 days if you want to plant some cucumbers. You don't want to plant cucumbers if you have 52 days till your frost and they take 52 days. You would really be cutting it close. Another thing you could plant if you want to push your luck are some bush beans, some green beans. So something like the Royal Burgundy bush bean that only takes about 53 days. You can plant something like that. You don't want to plant like the yard long bean. That thing takes like 70, 80, maybe 90 days. So it takes a long time to grow. You can see I have some cucumbers popping up, also some squash. I'll try to push my luck with over here. And I still have more squash and cucumbers that I planted a few weeks ago. If you want to push your luck with the squash, you want to grow a quick producing variety, like the Y-Star bicolor patty pan squash. This one only takes about 48 days from seed to harvest. You don't want to grow something like the zucchino rampicante. That takes about 76 days from seed to harvest. When it comes down to it, understanding how many days you have left to grow and understanding that not every crop, like not every cucumber takes the same length of time. There's a big gap. So like cucumbers are about 50 usually to 70 days and even past that. So you want to make sure you're growing varieties that produce quick. If you're going to try to get a quick harvest before that frost comes, use that expected frost date as a guidepost, and it'll help you understand what you still have time to plant no matter what zone you're in. That's today's video, growers. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you got something out of it. Me and Tuck hope that we brought you value in this video. We hope we gave you some ideas of what you could plant, but we hope that we also kind of educated you just a little bit on how to find out what you have time to plant with no matter what zone you're in. You may be in a different zone than me, but it's the same kind of idea of how to find out what to plant. Count your days, find out how long something takes, and give yourself a little bit of a buffer on each side, unless you're going to grow some of those super cold hardy crops. Overall though, me and Tuck had a blast out here. It's a hot day, but this guy doesn't give up. He's thinking, can I get some more cucumbers? Should I go lay down? But spam some hearts down low for the little boss. Tuck, what do you think, buddy? Yeah, he's always out here working pretty hard. Check out the amount of apples next to this guy too on the Honeycrisp. This thing's getting close to have some ripe apples. We've got ripe apples on the Williams Pride. Even though it's hot out, there's so many incredible things that happen in the garden. So you need to spend some time to focus on getting your fall garden planted so you can be harvesting late in the winter and also all through the winter. Right, boyo? Me and Tuck also wanted to mention a thank you to one of our new channel members, Pete T. Thanks for being a part of Team Grow. Thanks for having your hand in everything we're doing out here. We had a blast. We hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you subscribe and make sure you share this video with your friends. It helps the channel a lot and it helps us get the message out of Team Grow. We're trying to get everyone on the team so they can grow food and encourage other people to grow their own food too. And it becomes this exponential compounding thing. And then everyone has gardens in their backyard. Tuck and James will be back again real soon. We out.